All right, everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about 70s and 80s bands that still sound amazing, 70s and 80s bands that should just stay home, and the celebrity musician that Chris likes to hang out with in Costco.
So, Jeff, last time out, we were talking about, well, we talked about a lot as usual, but we were talking about a band that was near and dear to our hearts and who became famous really because of a concert and a live concert back in the day. Remember how big a deal double live albums were, that sort of thing. And we were talking about Cheap Trick, right? And referencing Live at Budokan, which kind of put them on the map, even though, and I probably, I don't know, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and, I was not great at world geography, but that album was the first time I'd ever heard the word Budokan. I didn't know Budokan could have been, I don't know, a drink or a breakfast cereal or something like that, but it was actually a place in Japan where they played a concert, and it made them huge, right? So we talked about that, and we talked about Cheap Trick, and we talked about Robin Zander, the lead singer, much like the lead singers back in those days, right? The charismatic, blonde-haired, long blonde-haired, good-looking guy with a dreamy voice and delivery, and like I said, charisma, everything he had. So it was not, and again, that was a fun pull because again, I heard a lot of the Cheap Trick songs in my head after that. Turn on the football game, which I know you probably didn't do because you're not a huge football fan. And who is singing the national anthem that exact day that we talked and recorded?
David Hasselhoff.
Not David Hasselhoff.
Oh, man.
Would you care to make another guess?
I'm going to say Robin Zander.
Robin Zander, the lead singer of Cheap Trick, singing the national anthem at an NFL playoff game, Tampa Bay at Washington. And it was just one of those moments where I'm like, wait a minute, what? I mean, it's okay, it's a coincidence, and it's not that amazing when you think about it. But still, it was just like, I immediately texted you and took a picture because it was like, well, it's good to know Robin's still out there. We're not the only ones talking about Robin Zander. I guess was probably although I'm sure there was, I don't know, 10 or 50,000 people at that game who said, who is this old guy that looks like the lady down the street? Because Robin Zander, again, did a great job, knocked it out, no complaints. We've all heard worse anthems. But 71, I looked it up, and which was just kind of like, really? Oh, that's one of those ones. Sometimes, right, you ever try to guess, like, well, how old is X a person? And you're usually, especially if it was somebody who was around when we were a kid, and you're kind of like surprised, and you're like, oh shit, they're that old. It's like, man, they were like, they could have actually in real life been one of my parents or something. But Robin Zander only 71, which was just like looking okay again for 71. Cheap Trick, we talked a little bit about how they blew up and how they were kind of unknown. And again, I don't really pay much attention to this anymore. Cheap Trick, member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which again, great songs, some great, I don't know if they had great albums, but just a long and successful career. Always fun. I've seen them live. I don't know if you've ever seen them live. But then to think it's like, wow, he was 71, which means he was like, remember when we were like humming along to I Want You to Want Me or Surrender, and he was like, they were young. You know what I mean? If these only 71 now, it was like, wow, these dudes really kind of hit it big in their mid to late 20s, which is pretty cool, which I guess was probably more common than we really paid attention to. But they're still out there and they're still performing. Now, he didn't have Robin Zander, backing him up. I didn't have Robin Zander. Didn't have Rick Nielsen backing him up or anything like that. No Bunny E. Carlos. I don't know if he's still alive. But it would just kind of got me to thinking. It was just like, it was kind of cool in so many, and again, because he did well, because he didn't embarrass himself. Sometimes I kind of look at the thing, it's like, okay, he's 71, and I guess he's still kind of got that rock star thing, and I don't really know much. I didn't look anything up about what he's really doing other than the fact that Cheap Trick still performs. Like, sometimes, is there a time where you do, a point in time where you kind of say, 71, maybe I start cutting my hair. You know what I mean? Maybe I start kind of looking 71. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not Robin Zander. But the thing that just kind of struck me, though, again, he's still out there. He's still performing. He's still known as the lead singer of Cheap Trick, and it's still cool. But I got to thinking about how many bands and how many performers that are out there and still out there, touring and maybe playing small venues and nightclubs and things like that, or doing those sort of joint tours where you get a Def Leppard and I'm just going to say it one time, Journey, touring together. They put together these little, Gen X concert packages. But you're seeing the bands, but in some cases you're not really seeing the bands, right? Maybe you're seeing some of the members. If you see the original members, it's huge. But you're seeing the songs, you're hearing the songs, you're seeing the performers. Is that legit? I mean, do you ever think about that? Like, that's not really the band as much as I loved them when I was a kid. I'm not really going to go see them. It's only got 2 of the original members. Maybe it only even has the lead singer, or maybe it doesn't even have the lead singer and it's got everybody else. What do you, I mean, is that legit? What are your thoughts on that when you see that coming down the road?
We talked about Rick Springfield and how, God bless him, he seems like the sweetest guy in the world. But, with some people, it's really obvious that they have made, dramatic efforts to keep themselves looking really young. And as we all know, with plastic surgery, you can look like Lindsay Lohan. I don't know if you've seen her recently. She has a completely different face, but whoever did that to her is the master plastic surgeon sculptor of all time. It is stunning. It literally looks like they took a different version of her, put her back 10 years, and then reinserted her into our reality. It's just like, oh, that's what plastic surgery is supposed to look like, versus other people, right? Where it just doesn't take. It just looks like you're sticking things on a Mr. Potato Head, right? And it just looks not great, right? Richard, is it Richard Marx? Is that the guy that I always say that and Rick Springfield,
Great hair.
Not great examples of people trying to stay young. God bless them. I totally get it. But when you dye your hair shoe polish black and your face has dramatically changed, it's like, man, you're just not doing anybody any favors. Robin Zander looks like an older guy. To me, he doesn't look 70. He does look different because his face has filled out a little bit, but he doesn't have like thin wisps of hair. He's not like the Crypt Keeper, right? Who just has these little, cotton candy wisps puffing here and there. He doesn't have the Benjamin Franklin haircut. He's got a real head of hair, and if it's healthy still, so good for him. So I guess my point with him is, like so many celebrities that have aged, you either age gracefully, I think like Robin Zander, and you don't care so much about, doing plastic surgery, or you really fuck up. Now, I think with Robin Zander, they're still doing concerts as far as I know. So I think he just thinks, for the audience sake, as long as I can keep the long hair, that's what they remember, I'm guessing. But he sounded good, man. I can think of so many examples of bands that are still touring, and oh my God, what a train wreck. The worst, it's really tragic, is Frankie Valli. I don't know if you've seen this, but that poor guy is in his mid-90s as far as I know. And they push him out on stage, and he just opens and shuts his mouth like your ventriloquist dummy. And it looks like you're at Disneyland, and it's the Great Hall of Presidents, right? Just animatronic or a marionation situation. He's not really even lip syncing. It's a really bad scenario. And all I can think of is, does he really want to do this? Or are there just people who just really want to make money off of Frankie Valli, and they just shove that poor guy on stage. Now, I don't know, right? But that's the other extreme. But I've seen so many situations, Chris, where you go see this band like, oh man, I haven't seen them in a long time, right? I think we mentioned this. I saw Missing Persons recently. She sounds perfect, absolutely identical to the 80s. Did not even skip a beat, right? I saw Gary Newman. Other than the fact that he has a wig that he wears, but goddamn, it's a pretty good wig. It looks pretty good. He sounds exactly the way he did back in the 80s. There isn't even the slightest difference if you close your eyes. So I guess that really matters. But Chris, what about the worst thing? What about the worst thing, which is we want to do a resurgence of our band from the 70s and 80s, but some people don't want to be part of the project, right? So how do we now present this new version of the band, missing key members? What's a good example you can think of just a real miss on that?
I think they're usually, right, there are legal reasons around that, right? It's just like, hey, man, we're split up and F that guy. I've got the publishing rights. He doesn't, right? So somebody can kind of go off. I can think of a couple where, I mean, pretty famous ones like, and they were a little bit before our time, but we still grew up knowing about like CCR, right? Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yeah.
And I think that immediately they were one of those bands that like broke up and splintered into like, even though I think it was only like 3 guys, there was like 2 or 3 versions, right? And I think it might have been like John Fogerty and like his brother or something like that couldn't get along. And so, yes, you're going and they're playing, and yes, and you have to, it's like buyer beware. Somebody like that is coming into town, and is it the band or an incredible simulation, right? Is it the original band, the original lineup? Is it one guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the Beach Boys came to mind. They were the same thing. It was like, hey, the Beach Boys are playing at the, at the fair. It's just like, okay.
Are they?
Are they? It's like a couple of those guys are dead.
Well, we are near the beach, and I guess technically that is a boy. All right. If you say so.
I don't remember John Stamos being a founding member of the Beach Boys.
That's weird.
But okay. So you'd see, so I think of those. And then again, I mentioned, like I said, one of these, it's funny that you had mentioned someone like Gary Newman, who wasn't really known for his looks to begin with. So it's probably, as long as Gary Newman sounded okay, you were good to go, right? It was just like, hey, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't think Gary Newman had a bunch of groupies, or maybe he did, I don't know, pounding on his door because of his boyish good looks back in the 80s.
I don't know. That's like a Joe Jackson situation, right? I don't think either one of those guys, other than just being really talented, but
exactly.
Hey,
like,
yeah.
Being a Joe Jackson fan from way back and seeing him a multitude of times, to the point, even making my wife go to the point where she made a declaration of no more Joe Jackson. So, and he kind of looked worse every time I've seen him, right? But hey, he's just aging like anybody else, right? I'm going to go easy on Joe, but he keeps getting angrier too. So I don't know if there's a correlation between that.
They do tend to get grumpy, and then they'll go down weird rabbit holes like Eric Clapton famously became extremely grumpy and very dark on his view of humanity, and went into a super sort of odd departure from the 1960s and 70s idealism that he kind of portrayed when he was. You see this a lot, right? They either go down a strange I'm angry at the world rabbit hole, or they just age gracefully. But there's really nothing sadder though than someone that really can't deliver. Or how about, Chris, though, an example of, we're going to reform the band. Why? Maybe it's nostalgia, or they just need money. But then they decide that, hey, like, I'm going to give you an example. The Cars, right? While Rick Ocasek was still alive, they did a reunion and would tour, and they used Todd Rundgren, right? Did I say that right? Todd? Yeah. That guy's an amazing musician. On his own, he's got some cool stuff that I personally like. But there's no Benjamin Orr. He passed away quite a while ago, God bless him. And there's no Rick Ocasek. So I'm sorry, what now? That is the band. Anybody can redo Greg Hawk's keyboards. He's an amazing composer,
Mm-hmm.
but any
And that's
guy,
a nice pull. Greg Hawkes, man, that is a deep pull.
but any guy could
Garcia keyboard
copy
player.
what he did, right? And
Okay.
Elliot Easton, incredible guitar player. I mean, just the best. But again, any studio guitarist can replace him. You're going to replace Rick Ocasek's vocals? Who the hell sounds like Rick Ocasek? Try,
Right.
I dare you.
Right.
But why? Why?
Well,
That's what we hear. That's the whole sound is Rick Ocasek and Benjamin Orr.
Well,
That's it.
Well, first of all, you're breaking my heart, because if there was one band, especially because they can't, at least not, I didn't want to say it's bad. It's like I want to say half of the Cars are dead. Okay. I mean, I think
Well, you can say it because that's the actual truth. Yeah.
And I mean, there's as many, they're about the same percentage as living Beatles as there are living members of the Car. Sad to say. So you couldn't.
They do have one extra. Technically, the Beatles have 2 left and the Cars have 3, but who's counting? Okay.
You're counting Pete Best in that regard or something like that? Or who are you?
No, the Beatles have 2 left.
You're counting Yoko
but the
Ono
Cars, well, no, the Cars still have their drummer and
Right.
Elliot Easton and Greg Hawkes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going on percentages, basically. I'm going on 50-50.
Gotcha.
So the
Well,
math is hard, Jeff. Try
That
to
was
keep
quite
up,
the
okay?
rabbit hole. My apologies.
That is okay. I know. I thought you had hidden Beatles members out there that you were. But I mean, and it's sad to me because I would go see them tomorrow if it was the original, or even if it was just Rick Ocasek and 4 or 5 session dudes. I'm like, I'm in. Okay, I would go see that because it would sound the same. You know what I mean? Regardless of how it looks the same, it would sound the same, right? And I think those are, but yeah, you talk about that. Yeah, Todd Rundgren. It's just like, okay, I can only think of one song, which was that I don't want to work, I don't want to bang on my drum all
That's
day,
right.
which has probably, has played at like every corporate, leadership conference of the last 20 years that I think I've been involved in. But it's just like, okay, you try to slide that one in there somewhat covertly. But that's an interesting, it's like replacement because that was it. It's like there's no Best Friend's Girl or Shake It Up. It's like Todd Rundgren did not have that sort of pop, hit top 40. Man, you're bouncing to the music kind of, other than that one song. His stuff was kind of weird. So,
to his credit, he does have a last name with a strange arrangement of consonants. That's kind of hard to say. And Rick Ocasek was or Ocasek. I don't know how you say that one. So maybe that's the only thing. But that would be like, hey, I'm going to go on the Rolling Stones tour. Sorry, guys. Mick Jagger can't make it this time. We're going to do a Who reunion without Roger Daltrey. It's pretty much just going to be Pete Townsend and some other dudes. Why?
Right.
What are we doing here other than just going, I'm in the same room with that guy? Right? It makes no sense to me. Or Chris, the worst, even worse than that, or equal to that would be, it is the mostly original lineup, and it is a band that is largely identified by the vocals, right? So that's really all that matters if you're putting together a reunion tour.
Right.
If that band had a signature vocal style, and I'll even use bands that I hate, like Styx. Say what you will about Styx, it is that guy. Like, you have to have that voice, right?
Dennis DeYoung.
Right. And again, my God, the biggest one of all time, CCR. Good fucking luck ever even coming close to sounding like John Fogerty. I dare you. I double fucking dog dare you.
Well, they tried.
To try.
Right.
And the more you try, the stupider you're going to sound because you're not John Fogerty. And again, now I'm off on a tear because John Fogerty was part of a long lineage of brothers who were in bands who ended up hating each other. That's them. I'm also thinking of, famously, Oasis. The Kinks is another one where the brothers hated each other. I think I may be wrong, but the Black Crowes and a bunch of other bands I think had brothers that were constantly feuding. Fuck you. Okay. But the worst is, okay, it is the lead singer. I'm so excited. Hey, let's get tickets. Let's go out to this club. Wow, this is so cool. It's only 500 people in the audience. I'd never thought I would get this close to this band. All right, it's going to be nostalgia night. Let's go. And you take your wife or your girlfriend out there, and God bless the lead singer, they suck. They just have no range, right? It's just, they're singing in a much lower register. They're trying to not hit the high notes. And you're just like, okay. I guess it was nice being in the same room with you, and I did get, a pretty good drink special. I guess we'll just call it an evening and go home, right? Again, another band that comes to mind, hey, let's have a Blondie reunion. Oh, but sorry, there's no Deborah Harry, guys. We got a different person to sit in, right? So many examples. But have you ever been to one of those, Chris, where it's like, what a fucking train wreck. That guy cannot sing anymore. God bless him.
I think I've kind of been. I can't think of anything specific that I have been like that. I've been fortunate enough to be the opposite, where I've been to like, okay, and a perfect example. It was fairly recently. It was going to see Dave Wakeling, who still plays with what he calls the English beat. And the judge, and judging by the looks of none of these guys, and they don't pretend that, hey, this is the original lineup.
Right.
But the musicians are all really tight, really, good instrumentalists at what they do. And he sounds great, and the songs sound great.
Incredible.
And it's just like, so I have experienced that, and I'd go see him, I've seen him several times and different iterations, to the point it was just like, man, it's like you're looking at it, it's like, I guarantee you that bass player was probably not even born when I Confess was written, right?
Oh,
and
right.
that's okay, because it's the bass player, right? And so but so there are other times, I won't give it a sniff. It's just like, forget it. It's like, I won't even consider it if it's not, and certain groups are the person, the lead singer, songwriter.
Right, exactly.
And they were
That's
even
it.
even in their original configurations. For example, would be like, okay, I was a big fan of, and still am, although she hasn't really done much. But again, she's semi-retired. Chrissie Hynde and the Pretenders. Okay, that lineup changed by default because between the first and second album, two of the members died of drug overdoses. A very 80s.
Well, and one of them they actually drowned, which was horrible. So
was he? Okay, I thought they both died. Oh,
yeah.
Anyway, so but they lost 50% of their lineup, and so then they kept the drummer, but then Martin Chambers, and then he left. And then she got other musicians, and she came back and forth. But Chrissie Hynde, that's an example. Chrissie Hynde was the Pretenders. So if she came out tomorrow and was playing some, it's like, I would consider, it's like, oh yeah, how much you're taking? Because I'm good. She's going to sound, I'm hoping she sounds the same, but she wrote the song. She owns the songs. The music is hers. The style, everything about it. Again, Pretender, she's interchangeable, right?
Right.
With a So that's. And is that any, at its core, is that different than seeing the original line? Well, of course. Now, there's no other version of the Pretenders out there touring, because they own half the publishing rights, and they can say they're the, unpretenders, because they do that. They do whatever, where they manipulate the name or whatever, and then people buy tickets and go, wait a minute, what am I seeing? But, in that case, it's okay. Is it hypocritical to say that that's okay? Because it sounds, if you were to close your eyes, you think you'd see the band, you're seeing the band, even though in your heart of hearts you're not?
Well, I think, music, of course, is so subjective, but every band is different in how we identify with them, right? So, look, excellent point. If the Pretenders were going to hold a concert right now down here in San Diego at the Belly Up, it has to be Chrissie Hynde. I could give a shit who is playing guitar, bass, or drums. Now, if it was some famous guitarist or bass player, sure. But who cares? That's a great example of who effing cares. It's Chrissie Hynde. I hope she still sounds good. Awesome. But, a band like, hey, I can't believe it. Did you see what's up? Yeah, down there at Humphreys or whatever. It's Hazy Fantasy, from the 80s. And all you're thinking is, dude, in a million years, I could barely pick out those people. They did have a really awesomely pretty, lead singer, but I don't know what she looks like these days. I have no idea. I could never pick them out. I don't care who their guitar player was, if they even had one. But if they still, do Shiny, Shiny, that song, right?
Right.
And it sounds pretty dang good and it's fun, I'm in, right? And Dave Wakeling, right, from the English Beat, the front man, I've seen him multiple times here in San Diego. And for those that don't know, the English Beat was a premier band, so huge in England, and then they came over here, and it was all kinds of different beats. They were identified with ska, but also other musical styles too.
Right.
Dave
Right.
Wakeling is unflappable. That dude, I've never seen him not smiling. He's always seems to be having a blast. His voice sounds, God, it's the exact same voice. And to your point, Chris, it doesn't matter. I literally saw him sitting there with this old guitar, and I thought, that guitar is 3 times older than the dude that is playing tenor saxophone right now on stage. 3 times. But it doesn't matter, right? Because all you care about is the voice and the energy and the attitude. And man, I love him.
That is the great point too. And you said that, and the attitude, and then he was having a great time. And that was something that we talked about after, again, I saw him a couple of months ago, is that the guy's enjoying himself. It's
Always.
Like, sure. Does he have to do this? How's his bank account? You know, and there are some people, let's face it, they have to do it, and that's why they're out there. Again, there's something for that. It's just like, yeah, you're not just going to pick up your check, backstage after the show. You truly enjoy what you're doing. You're performing for your fans. And there were young people, it's like we went with our friends. We brought our 12-year-old daughters just so they could sort of experience it. Many years ago, I think I told you about this one where I saw Elvis Costello, and he was miserable. And I've seen him multiple times, and I've seen but more miserable to the point of like not even talking between songs, just like going right into the next song. And it's just like, can you fake it, Elvis? Can you fake it? You know what I mean? And the answer was no. Exactly.
Can we pause right there, Chris? Because I would love to hear you compare, if you don't mind. Elvis Costello, when you recently saw him and he's just miserable and you could tell he maybe doesn't even want to be there for all you know. Or at the very least, you get the sense that he is carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders somehow. Versus, what did you see or experience when you saw him earlier in his career? Did you see him earlier?
Yeah, I saw him multiple times. I think there was just a different energy, and there was a different and there was just and again, it's like seemingly enjoying themselves, right? Because we're all faced with those choices every day in our life. There's want to versus have to. And I think he gave out that vibe, like, this is a guy that wants to do this, and was playing. And the one where, and I saw one of the tours, I don't know if you ever saw this one where it was called like the Spectacular Singing Songbook or something like that. And they had this big wheel of kind of like a Wheel of Fortune kind of wheel. And they would spin the wheel, and the song that came up is what they would play. And then if they would spin it again. And if it came up the same song, another song came up a second time, they would play it again. But they would play it differently. So again, there was an energy, there was a vibe, there was a fun, there was fun, there was a playfulness to it, and there was performance, there was entertainment versus obligation. And I think those were, and yes, Elvis was always, he was one of those angry young men of pop music, right, in the late 70s.
Put a pin in that though for 1 second, Chris. Come on. Here's my thing with Elvis Costello. A really quick side note. Amazing musician. We all get it. He's not a one-hit wonder. He has had many just not only great songs, but they have entered into pop culture and rock and roll, whatever, the whole mindset, and they're classics, and my God, it's amazing, right? But even back in his heyday, when he would be the rebel, I'm a rebel. And I remember things where, like, he was on Saturday Night Live and he was supposed to play one of his hit songs, and he was going to be a rebel. And all of a sudden, without telling Lorne Michaels, without telling the producers of the show, he immediately goes, everybody, stop. And then he goes into the song Radio, Radio. Now, this is his rebel, F the system. We got to buck the system, guys. We have to fight against tyranny. And the lyrics are just bubblegum pop. I'm sorry, but it is not the Sex Pistols, right? I'm like, dude, I get that you're rebellious, but radio is a sound salvation. Radio is cleaning up the nation. That's the daring lyric that you thought you were going to set the world afire with. No, God Save the Queen, the fascist regime, they made you a moron. That, my friend, that is ballsy. Or I am an antichrist, I am an anarchist. What? That's ballsy. He's like, everybody, wait till you hear this message. Allison, I don't get what? Something got lost in translation. Sorry, just my liner notes on Elvis Costello. Again, nothing against his musicianship, but he failed as a rebel, in my opinion. But thank you. The floor is yours, Chris.
Well, okay. Without trying to anesthetize the way that you feel.
Thank you.
That's not a bad argument, although it's a bit of an apples versus oranges argument with Sex Pistols and Elvis Costello.
Okay, good point. Yeah, you're right.
It's but he was banned. I mean, for whatever the thing is, he was banned from Saturday Night Live forever because he did that, right? Because
that's because he pissed off Lorne Michaels, not because he did some huge thing.
Okay, but he was, but there's that little edgy rebel part because he was told not to play it, and he played it because of NBC owned radio stations and everything else. So they were thinking like he was biting the hand, right, that feeds them, right?
Oh, another one. Geez, Chris, you are sewing those right into the conversation. Well done. Yeah.
I know, and I don't even have the liner notes in front of me.
He himself is a rebel. I get it, but his music does not convey that to me. Is my point, I guess. I don't hear it in the lyrics. And by the way, please understand, I am not comparing the Sex Pistols' overall musicianship to Elvis Costello. That's not the point of this at all. But the Sex Pistols pretty much punched you in your fucking face on every song. And Elvis Costello has wonderful songs, but seeing as what a rebel he said he was, and some of the things he physically did, it just didn't translate to me in the lyrics. The lyrics are just pop songs, yeah.
Well, you better do as you were told.
I don't want to fight the man after Radio. I just want to dance, right? Sorry, that's my reaction.
But I think, unfortunately, I would put him, and I don't, it just came up around the house because he's going to be playing in June, and my wife goes, "Hey, do you want to go to this?" And it's just like, not for those prices.
You're talking about Elvis Costello?
Yes. Right, not the Sex Pistols, right? So It's just like, I've seen him enough times. I don't know what I'm going to get, and it's just a matter of like...
Plus, I just got myself in a good place mentally. Who wants Elvis Costello and the Buzz Killingtons? I don't want that. I want Elvis Costello and the Attractions, right? I want him to do his funky little, Buddy Holly dance and put on his horn-rimmed glasses and smile every now and again. Dance, monkey.
Right. And at the same time, that was always like, I couldn't tell you, other than I think there was a guy named Steve Neve, because his name rhymed. I couldn't tell you any of the Attractions. So I couldn't tell you, it's like, here's Elvis Costello and the Attractions.
There's our point exactly, because it doesn't matter. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And he made albums with the Attractions and without the Attractions. And I couldn't really make the distinction between the two, right? Maybe I'm just not smart enough, but,
No, it's because it doesn't matter. You can either play the guitar or you can't. The end.
Okay. But, in continuing this sort of stream of consciousness, though, again, and I think I told you, I did go see a concert a few weeks ago with an old favorite of ours from the 80s, with all the original members, and it was X.
Oh, how did that go? Okay.
It was great. Okay,
good. I'm glad to hear that.
And this is but it comes with caveats. I think it's like, number one, you have to take in mind, it's like their age. Okay, it was just like
they had to sit down the entire time, take deep breaths. No, sorry, what?
Well, Billy Zoom, the guitar player, did sit down the entire time. Now, he's had, I guess, multiple occurrences of cancer. There were times where he was okay.
Well, now I'm a giant asshole. My apologies. All right.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Exene, lead singer, has MS.
Oh,
okay.
That's terrible.
Tell.
All right.
And all these people are pushing 70 years old. They played for 90 minutes, maybe like an hour 25. Wasn't even like a full 90 minutes.
Chris is timing it. Well, there's 5 minutes I'll never get. Oh, well.
But again, they're pushing 70. And they've been doing this forever. And it was a great show. They played they didn't play all the songs I wanted to hear, but that's okay because they still have new music that they're still trying to promote and get downloads on it. I get that. Kind of a band that's out there, and took my cousin and I went, and she's probably the biggest X fan that maybe ever, but definitely the one I knew because it was the fifth or sixth time she had seen them in the past 12 months. So she will go seek out wherever they're playing. It was again, so kind of veering into do they want to play, they have to play, probably kind of have to play, especially with all these health issues and things like that. But a great show nonetheless, and the crowd was into it. There was some over exuberant guys that were trying to get like a mosh pit going
That's going to be a mush pit. Yeah, when you're that old, dude, it's going to get ugly. Yeah.
Most of the crowd is like, hey, dude, I'm not going to break my hip here because I'm standing next to your mosh pit. But great
Mush
show.
pit, go. Yeah.
Right. Great show, great energy, lots of fun. And they seem to be having a good time. And they mix things up, an acoustic version, of Burning House of Love, which was just like, that's a really interesting version. So it was cool, right? But all original members, old songs mixed in with new songs, and performers that, of course, again, all original, of course, most notably, the two singers, John Doe and Exene.
Yep. That's all you need. Billy Zoom is awesome, but that is all you need. Yeah. You need those two. Yeah. Right.
Right. And Bill, yeah. And DJ Bonebreak was on the drums. And that guy actually played with the opening band as well. So that guy's like, not bad. He played 2 shows. He's sitting down.
DJ Bonebreak, little did he know how literal that name would become as he got older, right? I mean, if you're going to play the drums at that age, there's a good chance you're really going to be DJ Bonebreak. It's possible.
Fun fact, and I know you love fun facts, Chef.
Oh, I do, because they're never fun and they're rarely facts.
That is his real name.
Wait, what?
You can look it up. And John
His
Doe
mom named him DJ Bonebreak?
Well, his last name was Bonebreak. I don't think she specifically named him DJ.
How? How do you even come to that name? Well, I guess it's pretty obvious how you came to that name. Back in the Middle Ages, it's like, oh, shit, he fell off the horse. Well, I guess those are the bone breaks.
Oh, I don't know. Ask Terry Drinkwater, right, who was like a reporter on, for Walter Cronkite. I remember back in the day going, wait, this dude's last name is Drinkwater? I don't know.
Chris, let me ask you this question. Did they do da 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 na 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 na? Come on, baby, now don't be shy. Did they do that one? Breathless?
Breathless? Yes, they did.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I was trying to catch up with what your iteration was.
Well, I did it off key and out of tune, but yeah.
They did.
Other than that.
And it was really good. Kind of cheated. There's a website that's called, and they have it, it's like called Set List, where you can kind of pull up like touring artists and you can see their set list from even like the night before. And so we were it's just like, oh, here's what they played last night. And so it's like, oh yeah, Breathless was on there. And sure enough, they played it.
I could see certain bands that are getting a little bit senile actually going to that website to remember what their fucking set list was.
Hey, what did we play last night, man?
Wait, what are we going to do tomorrow? What the fuck did we do yesterday? Can you guys go on that website? Oh, thank you, AI. Oh, man. All right. Can you just play this for me? Thank you. I'm tired. I'm going to take a nap. Chris, did they have a nap in the middle of the concert
or no? They did not have a nap.
Oh,
they did have an encore, which I think, was literally like getting a drink of water and whatever. And so they did go, they did leave and come back and do a couple more songs, which was good because they'd only played up to about an hour at that point. Right. But DJ Bonebreak, yes, that's his real name. And I don't know what the DJ stands for. It was considering when he was, I'm sure I could look it up. Probably back in those days, it was probably like Daniel John or something like that, because that's what names were like, right? Back then it was probably something. Or
maybe all the names were just really bad and dark and weird, and his mom had kind of a goth edge to her. Maybe it was like dementia, jaundice, Bonebreak. We don't even know what that would ever have really been early.
No. And there's some kind of anecdote that there was bone breaks in Dave Grohl's family, and they found out that they were actually distant relatives, which I thought was an interesting sort of point. Another fun fact, 2 fun facts in this episode. I know how you...
It's a fact. I'll give you that.
It's a fact. It's fun. Why is that not fun?
Well, it was no more fun than my stupid comments.
On.
All right. It was a good one. That was a fun fact. Yeah.
Great.
How about a really unique situation, right? We've talked about many different versions of what to expect or not expect from a band that was famous 20, 30, 40 years ago, and now they're doing their reunion tour. But how about this? You've got a band that could not have been bigger in the 80s, right? Maybe one of the biggest pop bands in the 80s, right? And they are 100% the lead singer and his signature voice, right? And who gives a flying F who is on drums or bass or guitar? Nobody cares. Despite what the band members will tell you on how important they are irrelevant to a live performance if you don't have this singer. And of course, I'm talking about, and it's hard for me to say the words, Chris, because you know my feelings about this band, But who do you think I'm talking about? It starts with a J and it ends with Ernie.
I didn't want to go there. I thought this is a trick question.
No. Well, hey, if the shoe fits, I mean, we are talking about this. And Steve Perry, I don't know anything about the guy other than I saw him at Disneyland waiting in line like everyone else. And by the way, I had huge respect for him because the dude was not asking for any special treatment. He was just a dude with sunglasses on, and I knew it was him because he was 3 feet tall and he had that nose, and there's no way it's not him. And but anyway, good for him for just being a regular guy. But Steve Perry is not going to be in the band. What happened? You know the story, right? They somehow find, well, Chris, you tell the story because I've heard you tell this before. How'd they find this guy?
They found some guy who, I don't know if he was in a cover band or was just starting his own like YouTube channel, who sounded exactly like Steve Perry.
It's incredible.
I don't know. So again, they found him on the interwebs. They found him from where where you find every lead singer of every band in the Philippines.
Of course, that's the first place you'd go. Yeah.
And from what I understand, the guy's English is not that great, but his singing is outstanding. And that's a phenomenal point because, and see, here's the thing, right? It's like you get a new singer. Do you want them to be able to sing the songs? Okay, that's a given. But do they have to sound exactly like again, like we talked about, like your eyes are closed and you don't know you're not, or you're in the cheap seats and you've been drinking too much. It's like you don't even know. You have to squint to realize, oh, that's not Steve Perry, right? So it's like, and I guess that's the question. Do you want a capable singer with great range, with energy, who brings something different? Or do you just want, what are those commercials? Like, is it live or is it Memorex? Remember those when they would advertise for tapes? What kind of world were we like cassette tapes had commercials?
Nice poll.
Thank you. But is that what you want? Again, do you want somebody who could sing, or do you want somebody who sounds exactly like and in this case,
well, yeah,
they didn't give a shit because they wanted a guy because they, that sounded exactly. And from what I've heard, he does. And there was even, all right, full disclosure, there's a documentary, I think it was on Netflix, talking about this. It was a whole thing about how they found this guy, how they went out, got the band back together. And it's the opposite of what we talked about. It's every original member, right, at the time, is keyboard player and guitar player, Neil Sean, right, all these guys.
They all needed money.
And so everybody but Steve Perry. And they go out, and it was about the process. And I watched it. I was sick at the time, and I'm like, I think I couldn't find the remote. So it's just like, all right, I'm just going to finish or keep watching this till I fall asleep. And so kind of told this story. And that begs the question. And I don't care. And we know your thoughts. And if you take the J word out of this equation, as far as what you're talking about, like if we take that out, is that, and so do you care that it sounds great? It sounds just like him. I'm going to go see that band.
Yeah.
Or it's not the band. Is specifically, like I said, you can throw in a new bass player, a new drummer, whatever, and you just move on. Because let's face it, bands that are, especially, if there's more than 3 members, if you're not Rush or the Police or something, it's like it's pretty easy to have these guys. Look at how many, especially like Rolling Stones, how many members of the Rolling Stones have been replaced, but you still had Ron Wood and Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, so everybody else was kind of interchangeable. So would you go see that? I mean, and again, like I said, taking this particular band out of the equation, would you go see them? Because it still sounds the same, and it's 4 out of 5 guys.
Of course, it just goes back to how do we identify with this band, right? So what is music, especially when you get to our age or older? It is, and by the way, Brian Schock, right, who we talked to a couple episodes ago, the actual DJ from the 80s, he brought up a good point. We all know this. A lot of this is all about, where was I when I enjoyed that music? How does that make me feel? What feelings does that song bring back? What memory does it bring back, right? And that is one of the obviously most powerful things. So obviously for some people, hey man, if I can close my eyes and this guy sounds like Steve Perry and it's enough that I can suspend disbelief, you're going to have a great time, man. And it's also cool to be in an audience where everyone is on board and we're all excited and we're all holding up, I was going to say our lighters, but we're all holding up our lighter app in the air with our cell phones and we're swinging back and forth, right? But still, hey, man, we're getting older. I just want to get out, right? And if you guys don't dramatically knock me out of my zone and you're not doing anything overtly stupid to not sound like the band, I'm in. So I think that probably works. I mean, it's just shocking that the dude sounds that much like Steve Perry. As we all know, that's a very hard voice to emulate. But if you don't sound like yourself anymore, and then it just becomes kind of a dud and not a great experience, and it's just really super distracting and weird and kind of a bummer. In fact, it unwinds those good memories in a way. It's like, oh shit, now when I think about that memory, I'm going to think about this poor guy that just kind of carted himself out on stage, or they had that really shitty replacement guy. But Chris, on that note, I went begrudgingly to a outdoor concert with my wife, and I really like going to this venue. It's in a city called Vista, California. It's the Moonlight Amphitheater. It is so cool. It's outdoors. Just the stars are above you. They have a full orchestra and they put on all these cool plays and stuff. It's good. It's fun. But it was Fleetwood Mac. And let me tell you, I am not against Fleetwood Mac at all. I like a couple of their songs and they're incredible musicians, but I wouldn't call myself a fan. And this was a tribute band. I'm like, oh man, well, my wife really wants to do it. We have these tickets. My mom and dad, on my wife's side, were nice enough to give us the tickets. So, all right, let's go. Chris, I'm sitting there. These guys sounded so much like Fleetwood Mac. How? I don't know. How do you get someone to sound that much like Stevie Nicks? You tell me. How do you get someone to sound that much like Christy McVie? No idea. Lindsey Buckingham. Their Lindsey Buckingham sounded exactly like Lindsey Buckingham. That's a trick. The fact that I could even name those three people from Fleetwood Mac tells you.
I gotta say, I am stunned.
How impressed I was with this band.
Those are some pulls.
What's the other guy's name? Mick something? No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. Yeah.
Hey, I saw Mick Fleetwood at Costco, selling selling tequila. And he's really tall and he has I think it was tequila. And I'm walking the back aisle and it was really weird because it was a Thursday and there was nobody in Costco and he's standing up and I want to say he's 6'7" or something.
Oh yeah, he's tall.
And I was like, oh, hey, and he said hello, because it was kind of sad and pathetic because they didn't do much promotion there. Or somehow this guy got stuck at the Costco in Carlsbad at 6:00 on a Thursday. And
that is bizarre. I can't even believe that story. That's very strange, Chris. All right.
Yeah, saying do you want a signed bottle of Mick Fleetwood, tequila? It's no, not really.
Good God. Yes, I do. Really? I would. By the way, I'm going to have to try to get that story out of my head because that's so weird to me. It almost sounds like you stumbled onto a different universe that Mick Fleetwood would be sitting in a Costco signing something, but
it's it's like something that would show up on The Simpsons, right? It was this weird
But look, dude, we've all been to Costco. If you're bored and your wife is buying stuff, you're just going to go from sample table to sample table, figuring out what the deep fried, barbecue,
egg roll,
jalapeno poppers taste like. And here I am with my little paper plate that has the jalapeno poppers and the brand new chocolate chip cookies that they have, and I'm eating my samples. And I go to the other table and it's Mick motherfucking Fleetwood going, hey man, have you tried this? I'm sorry, what now? What the fuck? Do you know that you bear an uncanny resemblance to Mick Fleetwood? I am Mick Fleetwood. Okay, well, I guess I died and I am now in some kind of alternate universe. That's very strange.
Right. Or you can die. It's okay, now I have seen everything. And it is
totally.
Mick Fleetwood trying to sell me a 1.75 liter of tequila with his face and name on it that he'll autograph. And then I'll take it home and make margarita. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're
right.
know.
And by the way, don't go over to the other side of the store where they have samples of Pinot Grigio because Eric Clapton's in a bad mood today. All right. So you just want to skip that whole area. Don't even try. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But Chris, going back to the Fleetwood Mac. Sorry, I just want to make one more last comment here, which
Yes.
is I left that little concert from a tribute band totally re-energized by Fleetwood Mac, and I then realized, oh, wait a minute, I don't just like 2 or 3 songs. I counted; those guys have 10 songs minimum that I don't just like, I really like, and I'm like, wait a minute, has this always been a band that I really like, and I just don't know it? The problem with Fleetwood Mac is they also have songs that I roll my eyes, and I can't do it, and they're all, God bless her heart, Stevie Nicks songs, and I'm just like, I can't.
Right.
I can't do it, man. I've just heard it too many times on the radio, and it's not my style. Also, I'm not Wiccan, right? I'm not a white witch. And I just, the whole thing, it loses me, right?
I totally thought you were.
With the scarves and the spinning around, and I don't know, man. She just seems to me to be insane. That's all. Maybe she scares me.
One question then, and Landslide, in or out? Are you in or out on Landslide then, if you talk about
I think that is one of the ones I do like,
right.
yeah.
And that's one that's had great covers. Smashing Pumpkins has done a great cover on it.
Yeah. Now I know the one you're talking about. I like that one, yeah.
Dixie Chicks, or whatever, the Chicks.
Yeah.
Do
right,
really, I'm not a country magazine,
Yeah.
country music person. But,
right.
Okay, but and see, then Fleetwood Mac was probably one of those, it's like when you realize that, wow, they did, because I'm guessing, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, you left the tribute show, got in your car, probably pulled up Spotify, and did you pull up some Fleetwood Mac?
I did. No, you nailed it, 100%. All the way home, I played Fleetwood Mac songs.
That was like it. Kind of like it worked. It was like, hey, it got you to engage. It got you to listen. Got you to give it a new appreciation. And I think and that's probably one of those things. Like, I didn't realize I like this, or I didn't acknowledge that I like this when it came out. Because maybe Fleetwood Mac would probably be a perfect example of a band that, in the times that we talk about, when you were listening to, when you were all about Devo,
the Ramones or whatever, yeah,
or the Ramones, in a million years, you never ever would have admitted.
No.
Yeah, maybe if I waterboarded you or something, you would have admitted, hey man, tell me, it's like you
maybe.
Like,
no guarantees.
You like Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow, don't you?
I do like that song. I really do. I didn't know how much I like that song.
Then you would never have admitted it. You would never say, no, I don't change the station when it comes on. You know what I mean? But so I think you get a new appreciation, or you admit that it's like you acknowledge it. No, I appreciate it all the time. I just never really admitted it to myself.
And I'm just going to have you clear your mind. Not that this matters at all, but let's test your psychic abilities. The song that I like the most by them, that if I ever were to hear it, which is kind of weird because we don't really listen to the radio per se anymore. I would have had to have wanted to hear it. But what do you think is my favorite song? It was on Rumors, right? Their most popular album. It's one of the biggest songs on there, but that's the one that I love. If I hear it, I'll have to listen to it probably twice. But do you know what it might be?
Thinking. It's not Tusk, right?
I like that song a lot. Tusk. I didn't realize. I remember the big video when it first came out on MTV, and they had the was it the USC Trojans
marching band? Yeah.
USC marching band, and that's a really cool song. And they did an excellent job on that. They really built it up and made it bigger and bigger, and had a mini orchestra there. But it's Secondhand News. That song, Secondhand News. I don't know why. I have no clue.
That one.
It just hits me. Yeah. I don't know why. Yeah. Favorite song.
Wow.
Yep.
Also, just throwing in Tusk, the very first episode of The Americans. I don't know if you ever watched that show about the family of, Russian spies. Very first episode, there's like this very tense opening scene where they're like, the spies are chasing down like a double agent or something like that. And they used that as the music. It was...
Well, again, this is one of those topics that, we could dive into for, 17 more episodes. Maybe we will. But I do think we at least touched on all of the fineries on whether or not any future band that listens to this podcast that is thinking about doing a reunion tour, please refer to this and ask yourself, am I eliminating somebody who is an integral part of the sound of this band? If so, let's just get money some other way, right? Let's not drag a bunch of people to a venue, have them pay money, and then just be hugely disappointed. And number two, if you are going to replace a band member that's integral, maybe the Philippines. Maybe that is a good place to start. And why not, right? Why not? Or at least YouTube. Did I miss anything? Oh, and lastly, I feel like I was a little too hard on Elvis Costello. I also feel like if somebody knew a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy that eventually told Elvis Costello about our small podcast and what I said, I just feel like that could be bad for me. I feel like I'm going to get a lot of hate. So I would like to go back and restate for everyone on here that I actually stand by all my comments. Yeah, I'm not backing down. All right, there we go.
Well done.
Well, what do you think, Chris? Until next time.
Till next time, Jeff.